Hello, I'm Mr. Tom, and I paint silly things. A while ago, I painted this succulent Bulbasaur. It sits in a tiny frame on my desk and quietly judges me when I start slacking at work. So when I found this frame, I thought I'd paint Bulbasaur a friend so he would leave me alone and I could go back to watching wrestling in peace instead of working on edits and sketches. There's an old adage that says, measure twice, cut once. But the problem is, math is pretty hard. And art school doesn't really push a math curriculum, so I'm just gonna think inside the box. Now, I wanted to make this a portrait of my favorite Christmastime Cryptid. So I opted for a pleasant smiling pose. I imagine this is the look of a face before a long night of terrorizing local orphanages and snatching up naughty children in the dead of night. Of course, I'm talking about Krampus, the yin to St. Nick's yang. Where St. Nick comes to town rewarding good little kids, Krampus comes and takes away the naughty children. He's a pretty big deal in Europe, and in the Christmas-themed horror movie genre, you can't find a better bad guy. I'm going to keep him in my usual spooky cute style, complete with a sweet jingle bell bandolier sling, appropriately pointy horns, flappy ears, and soft, supple fur. Now comes the magic of transferring doodle to watercolor paper. All you need is some light to shine from behind the sketch and the paper, pick out the good lines from the bad lines. Be sure to tape it down so that your paper doesn't run off. I'll need my overdressed number 2 pencil, and since I hold my pencils with a Togen death grip that would make Meng jealous, I use the foamy rubber thing. Now I'll run through and pick out all my lines. I mean, they'll still be visible when I paint over them, but since I plan to ink the whole thing when I'm finished, it'll be like they were never there at all. This part is crucial and not everyone does it. You have to tape the paper down. If you don't, you run the very real risk of it running off once the water touches it. Also, it helps if the paper starts to buckle when you're working with a lot of water, but it could also run off. Now at this juncture, I think I should mention that it is very important to set up a second camera to showcase the materials that you're using, but then put the materials that you are using on the other side of your table, because like math, camera angles are very hard. Krampus is traditionally very dark, almost charcoal gray, but the one I know was a beautiful chestnut brown with soft blonde highlights. To do this, I'll use some burnt umber, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and a hint of Naples yellow. In other words, brown, really brown, and kind of yellowy. His horns get an appropriate horny color, and I try to avoid the edges to give it a cool highlight. His ears, though, get a newborn piggy color, but this paint is pretty pigmented, so I load my brush up with a lot of paint on one edge, and then I come back with just water on my brush and pull it downwards to give it a really clean gradient. Let's paint his mouth like a giant cave, except this cave has 2 fangs and a tongue that we have to watch out for. Then we can paint his belt, wicker basket, and sweet chain link bracelet. Now that the basic colors are in, I want to give him a nice yellow ochre wash. The paper has to be completely dry first, otherwise your colors won't respect you and they'll just run all over the place. A wash is a really easy way to blend some of your transitions and give a more uniform look to larger areas. Now comes my favorite part, inking. And for once in this video, the stuff I'm using in the top left hand corner is correct, although it's purely coincidental. These are the most available, at least in my home world, waterproof pens, and I love them. Micron fine liners. They come in a bunch of different colors, a bunch of tip sizes, and they even have a pen brush. I tend to stick with 3 different sizes. The 05 for the outside lines, the 02 for the inside lines, and the .005 for fine details. Now, for the most part, I'm just running over my pencil lines, but there are a few instances where I take a few creative detours and add things that weren't in the original sketch. Now it's one last pass with some color, just to fill in some areas that I thought would get covered while inking, and some shadows to fill in some of the new details that I added in the wicker basket. Maybe a dash or a line here and there just to create some depth and to round some things out too. Now it's time to start cleaning things up, and since we're no longer risk of our paper running away, we can start to take the tape off. My apologies to ASMR fans out there. Peeling tape off is very satisfying, but those microphones are just out of my budget. Just make sure to get all the tape. We're almost finished. I just want to line things up in the frame to make sure the math that I almost did earlier would have been correct. This is a new thing. I'm actually going to sign it. Normally, I would never do this. I hate signing things I've made. But recently I got yelled at by a customer for sending an unsigned print. And I hate getting yelled at by anyone that isn't Mrs. Mr. Tom. And even then I'm not a big fan. But since this is going on the website for sale, I'm not taking any risks. We're going to bring our old friend tape back, but this time we're going to use some fancy archival tape to mount our cryptid friend to the frame. While I'm back here, I might as well put a special message back here for whoever decides to pick this up, which, if we're being honest, will probably be my mom. Let's put it all back together and see how we've done.
Wow.
If you've made it this far, I really appreciate you. And if you want to check out some of my other work, you can see me on Instagram or stop by my website, links below. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that nonsense. And until next time, be good, do good. Hugs and high fives, friends.